Sometimes it can feel like the world is turning and you are getting left behind in limbo. You look around at your friends and family, but you don't recognise them as being the same as you. You can feel lonely, depressed, or even wish that you didn't exist. For many people, this is a temporary period of their life and things work out eventually. But for some, it can be a long road of depressive episodes where they try many different things to fix their feelings of unhappiness and anxiety. The issue is that in today's society, we have relatively easy access to things that temporarily fix our broken moods and let us escape reality. Alcohol, substances, and even prescribed medication from a professional. They can only last for so long before the original symptoms start to break through again. This is because the coping mechanisms you are using for yourself are not going to heal the self, the inner you where you keep your deepest secrets, your hopes and your dreams. Talking therapies and self-exploration are a great way to realise what you want from life and to motivate yourself to actualise those goals. We don't mean have a pep talk to yourself in the mirror every morning, although that can help. We mean the psychology of true self-realisation. The dictionary defines neurosis as a relatively mild mental illness that is not caused by organic disease. It involves symptoms of stress which manifest as depression, anxiety, obsessive behaviour, hypochondria, but not a radical loss of touch with reality. It is often used by non-medical professionals to describe the symptoms mentioned above, and it comes from Sigmund Freud's two-stage account of neurosis. Karen Horney was a psychoanalytic theorist who lived post-Freud, meaning that she could use his theories and explore her own. She believed that neurosis resulted from basic anxiety caused by the stresses of interpersonal relationships. She saw this neurosis as the main barrier in the journey of self-realisation. In her theory, she proposed that as humans, we need to get over our personal neurosis and face our mental conflicts head-on, rather than hiding from them. It would only be then that we could move on and begin true self-development. Man, by his very nature and of his own accord, strives towards self-realisation, and that his set of values evolves from such striving. Apparently, he cannot, for example, develop his full human potentialities unless he is truthful to himself, unless he is active and productive, unless he relates himself to others in the spirit of mutuality. The word neurosis itself is hardly ever used in modern society. However, things such as depression, anxiety, OCD, and many other mental disorders are now treated as separate entities within a whole. You could say that neurosis is the general inability to handle the problems that life throws at you in an effective or structured way. Karen Horney saw this as a person having a distorted view of the world they live in, their interpersonal relationships and themselves. This negatively affects the way that they interact with others and how they treat themselves. According to her theory, people should always strive for self-realisation. Simply put, a genuine way for you to see yourself, address the underlying issues, and become all you can be. If you are battling with neurosis, you can't understand your predicament because you have an unrealistic vision of yourself and the world around you. So, until you can get past that barrier, you can never move on and essentially reach true happiness and completion of the self. Prominent Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung agreed with the importance of self-realisation. He used the term individuation to describe the main goal in a person's life. So, what does this all come down to? The theories suggest that a neurotic person, someone who suffers from mild mental health issues, will be so preoccupied with their compulsive quick fixes and trying to avoid the underlying issues that they have simply no room left within themselves to focus on self-realisation. Imagine you've had an extremely busy week. One of those weeks where everything seems to have gone wrong. You need to speak to different people and do different things to sort out a collection of issues. You only get a couple of hours at the weekend to relax and try to calm down, but your brain keeps running over and over what you need to do, so much so that you feel you can't switch off. All you have the mental capacity to do is to zone out in front of YouTube or the TV on your couch. Disconnect from your life. This is what it will feel like to a person on a constant basis who is overwhelmed. They're trying so hard to keep everything afloat that there's nothing left of themselves to give over for self-development. This is a person with neurosis. So many different studies have been carried out in the 20th and 21st century into mental disorders and conditions that it can be really hard to know where to start to research what creates neurosis in any one person. We will give a basic overview here, however, we strongly suggest that you also look into the different studies yourself. The TLDR is that the way you were brought up during your childhood, your early formative years, heavily affects what your personality becomes as an adult. This can be seen in children who suffer trauma as a baby, even before they can speak. It permanently affects their mental health and development throughout their life. Therefore, you can say that it's a mixture of nature and nurture that causes neurosis, because of course, there are genetic and hereditary conditions that can be physically passed down to generations. A healthy person is considered to be someone who doesn't rely on coping mechanisms a whole lot. They may use them in extreme times of stress, such as a relationship breakup or grieving a loved one, but if you look at their life as a whole, there will be rare times that they overuse or abuse alcohol and substances. They will generally be a balanced and dependable person. You should be able to predict what they can do most of the time. Impulsiveness may be around healthy positive aspects of life, such as treating friends to a surprise day out, volunteering for a charity event, or deciding to start an educational course to explore different parts of themselves. This is healthy, positive impulsiveness. If someone is living an unhealthy life due to their neurosis, you will find traits of what Karen Horney calls basic hostility and basic anxiety. These two things have a profound effect on the way that an individual deals with their daily life and situations where they're under pressure. It is widely believed that to become neurotic, you will have experienced a traumatic or unstable childhood, or you will have had an unsettling life for a long period of time, or your life has progressively become stressful as an adult and you are no longer able to cope. Here at Know How, we have many videos about coping mechanisms and ways in which you can become more mindful. So, if you are feeling as if you may be considered neurotic, or you are currently feeling anxious, we would love you to browse our back catalogue and find something to watch that helps you out at the end of this video. Karen Horney identified 3 neurotic needs in people that were using coping mechanisms to battle their depression, anxiety, and stress. Moving towards people, moving against people, and lastly, moving away from people. These are pretty self-explanatory needs that an overwhelmed neurotic person has. They gravitate towards people, e.g., they want to be with others all the time rather than spending time alone with their own thoughts. They may socialise too much or become clingy as a partner. Or they start to argue and pick fights with people for little reasons because they are irritated and have no patience due to the background stress of their life. And lastly, they distance themselves from people, like the person who stays at home and plays video games all day or drinks alone until the small hours of the morning. This is all classic behaviour for people that suffer from mental health issues. But unlike a chemical imbalance found in psychotic diseases, which can be treated with medicine such as mood stabilisers, neurosis is a mild form and can be treated through talking therapies and cognitive behavioural therapy, getting someone to change their daily physical activity and mental activity, which then changes their mood positively over time, replacing bad coping mechanisms with less harmful ones. The reason that this can be a difficult cycle to break out of is because neurotic people are stuck within their own mind. This is an incredibly challenging issue when it comes to self-realisation. The neurotic person is so concerned with perfection and everything going right for them that only a perfect version of their best self will make them feel satisfied or accomplished. As you well know, self-realisation and mindfulness is a journey with many ups and downs, some setbacks too, and it's rarely perfect, especially on the first attempt. It is extremely important when working on your inner happiness that you understand there is a difference between actualization of the realistic self and actualization of the idealistic self. The first is something we all need to begin to accept, and the second is used to set goals and keep you motivated. If we take Karen Horney's view of the 3 neurotic needs, we can apply this to the view of oneself that a neurotic person may have when trying to achieve their own perfect self. The perfectionist that moves towards people will come across as a people pleaser and always be trying to be part of a group. They need to be liked by others to feel good. The major issue with this behaviour is that we cannot control society, and especially we can't control the universe. The perfectionist that moves against people searches for glory and adoration, even if this is at the expense of other people's happiness. You can see this in some celebrities who crave fame, or ruthless business people who stop at nothing to be considered at the top of their game. Just like number 1, admiration from other people is beyond our control, and glory is short-lived. The perfectionist that moves away from people sees themselves as self-sufficient and able to manage everything alone. They believe that once they complete their self-imposed goals on their own, they will feel accomplished, and they can believe that they are superhuman in their ability to do everything without assistance. In reality, as you know, the world is intertwined and connected on so many levels. It's almost impossible not to rely on others for some help or compassion. For the analyst, it is a source of never-ending astonishment how comparatively well a person can function with the core of himself not participating. This quote is interesting because she is not the only one who has observed this behaviour. We have spoken about it in other videos, such as the hedgehog's dilemma. If you are continually acting superficially and ignoring what's at the heart of your innermost thoughts, never addressing issues and merely existing, you will never reach happiness and the relief that comes from self-realisation. Similarly, if you are stuck in your neurotic headspace and falling into the 3 needs, you cannot become so self-aware that you reach realisation. Throughout Western psychology, such as Horney, Jung and Freud, the term self-realisation means fulfillment by oneself of the possibilities of one's character or personality. In short, being all you can be during your lifetime. This concept originated through Eastern religions and spirituality, which is why to modern people it may seem really vague. However, it is a very important topic. How do you know that you're being everything you can be? How do you know when you're not being true to yourself? Firstly, you need to be able to take time for yourself on a regular basis, even if it's just 30 minutes a day. During this time, focus on yourself in a calm and quiet way. You can practice mindfulness or take a bath or a shower, meditate, read a book, something that relaxes you and allows you to be temporarily free of stress. Once you have made this self-care a habit, you can then begin to use the time dedicated to yourself to think about bigger questions such as your own likes and dislikes and eventually your goals. Try to remember that this is not a time to make yourself angry or frustrated. So, if you are feeling unhappy about a situation, look at it logically and not emotionally. Accept that it has happened and that you're entitled to be frustrated on some level, but this is a time for you to plan and be realistic. Because everyone is different, there's not just one answer of how to work towards self-realization. We will briefly cover a list of things that have helped us and that have been proven to give people structure when it comes to learning more about themselves for self-improvement. If a person has had sufficient courage to discover an unpleasant truth about himself, one may safely trust his courage to be strong enough to carry him through. Getting to know yourself, or self-exploration, can be done through talking therapies with a counsellor or a trained therapist. And it can also be done by you. There are plenty of resources available when it comes to these methods. Just make sure that you're using reputable sources such as academic study papers and verified articles. The Big 5 personality traits is a suggested taxonomy or grouping for personality traits developed from the 1980s onwards in psychological trait theory. When factor analysis, a statistical technique, is applied to personality survey data, it reveals semantic associations. For example, some words used to describe aspects of personality are often applied to the same person. Someone described as conscientious is more likely to be described as always prepared rather than messy. These associations suggest 5 broad dimensions used in common language to describe the human personality, temperament, and psyche. You can find free copies of this survey online. The shadow is conceptually the blind spot of the psyche. The shadow is projected onto one's social environment as cognitive distortions. The idea can include everything outside of light of consciousness, and it may be positive or negative. Because the subject can repress awareness or conceal self-threatening aspects of themselves, consensus of the idea of the shadow is that it is a negative function in the self, despite the extent of repression failing to prohibit these aspects. Now, that all sounds like a lot to take in, but basically, shadow work is how you can look logically at yourself and be constructively critical of yourself, your actions and your behaviours. Therefore, when you do identify an issue, you can work on fixing it, not just repressing it and hiding it in the shadows. Enneagram, from the Greek word enia, meaning 9, and gramma, meaning something written or drawn, is a model of the human psyche which is principally understood and taught as a typology of 9 interconnected personality types. The Enneagram of personality has been widely promoted in both business management and spirituality contexts. You can find lots of websites that allow you to construct your Enneagram, and once you have the answers, you can gain insight into your own behaviours. These are things you can do without the use of a website or an academic analysis. Taking time out each day to release your deepest thoughts and write them down, or simply finding the time to empty your mind and breathe, will give you structure, balance, and calmness. By having this breathing space, you can begin to look within and decide what you want your path in life to become. Now that you have a basis to start your self-realization journey, we want to let you in on a secret. You are not striving for perfection. Just like when you're told not to compare yourself with others because you are all different and you all have your own skills and personality traits, the same is incredibly true of the idealized self. This will mean something different to every single person watching this video. When you are getting in touch with your inner self, you should do so with calm, kind inquisitiveness. Ask yourself questions about certain past situations. See how you reacted and if you would react differently in the future. People who are neurotic often try to shy away from the big questions and truths in their life because they feel that they won't live up to the perfect end result that they are aiming for. You need to understand and believe that this perfect vision of a person doesn't exist. If you have enjoyed this video and you're inspired by what you've seen, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Let's change the world together.